Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on, goodness, is it Tuesday already? Tuesday the 13th of July. So as the year flies past, let's see what we've got in front of us today. Firstly, I'm going to have a look at the calendar for today, and I can see it's quite thin because we've got mostly a day test tomorrow. We've got the Bank of England governor speaking at 8:30 now. Okay. This is release time comes as a surprise from the source. There we are. Press conference about the financial stability report. So we'll see what comes. Okay, watch out for some movement at 8:30. There is certainly with Bank of England governor speaking. There's always a chance of some volatility and a surprising event. I hadn't seen that yesterday, so a new event in there. We could get a bit more of a surprise from that. Okay, then 1:30. So 1:30 is the other key risk event, or with some reasonable impact around inflation at the moment. But of course, it's the Fed have pinned things onto the jobs as opposed to inflation, and they're willing to accept inflation pushing up. So volatility may occur, not necessarily change the shape of things. Right, this morning then I'm going to look through Forex first, then we'll look at the equity markets and then the crypto markets. So Forex, starting off with Forex this morning, and I will change this around morning after morning depending on what morning it is and what I've got in front of me. Right this minute I've got my euro dollar sitting in front of me. Now Euro played tricks with me yesterday. I did excuse me, expect further upside. It started off quite well on Thursday, Friday last week, but yesterday, well, it ended up a bit better. A real game of two halves yesterday, without any doubt. Come the 12 o'clock candle, when it bounced back, but I was expecting more at the start of things. It just didn't turn round or didn't continue as I expected in the first place. It got off to a good start and started pushing up, well, thrown me. But this is holiday trading at its best in terms of looks like it's going one way, then completely reverses. And it did, it completely reversed and then went back the way it was starting in the first place. Anyway, for now, difficult. As soon as you start getting a bar inside another a previous, so we've got a lower high at the moment and a higher low, it starts getting a bit sort of more rangy and tighter. Which way is this going to go this morning? It's almost a throw of the coin where it's sitting at the moment. So I tend to peel outwards, but we haven't in significant lows put anything lower than this low that was on the 9th of July there, so we're still sitting above that. We have, but not actually, we have put a lower high in. It was confirmed, so we've got a slightly lower high in, and it's that sort of, but it's that chop, and it's holding around a range. I mean, I've got my original trend line on there, easily enough to put another trend line running across here. So you start getting these this trend here. So it's more of a wedge sort of pattern. Now, obviously, it breaks the upside of that. We'll see us pushing back into the highs initially, so be careful. But if it comes with momentum at the right sort of time of the day, we could be pushing through there. What is the right time of the day at the moment? Well, could be this afternoon. We're seeing more movement in the afternoons once it gets going than we do see in the mornings at this moment. The pound, I also expected more of to the downside yesterday. To the downside actually, once it got going, it just it just didn't keep going. It has on a daily basis put a higher low in on that little pattern there. You can see a little bit clearer here, the higher low from the previous low here, very highs taken out, and yesterday, well, it's taken us back up. Well, this morning it's taken us back up to those prior highs, but probably no great surprise we get selling coming into it. It's whether or not it can hold around here this morning. If it can start breaking above this area, then we could be looking for maybe a move towards that weekly R1 area. We've got the 200 to 500 up there, so there's something to draw us to the upside. Coming down into the 60-minute chart, I've got the daily pivots on here. These often give me reasonable intraday targets, and there you are, there's the R1 that's just above the current highs. But let's just see, we're on a daily pivot at the moment, whether we can get a bounce off this and start moving to the upside. Dollar yen, so I've got a bit of an upside bias there to a degree, but well, those two markets. I'll talk about it in a moment, the overall market bias that I'm seeing from the big money. Okay, so the dollar yen high lows, high highs all the way through here until, well, we started selling off. At the beginning of this month it started selling off, and well, a little bit of rally over the last couple of days. It started moving up. It's become very difficult from me to work out which way this is going. Generally, with it, as it's the dollar yen, if the dollar's getting stronger, we should see the yen pushing, this dollar yen pushing upwards. The only thing is, it's becoming a risk element. We're seeing money running into this, the Swissy, and of course the dollar to a degree. So we're seeing these this flow of money running through when the risk is off, when people don't want to take the riskier trades. We're seeing money running through into these currencies, yet of course when the risk comes back on, as opposed to seeing these currencies getting stronger, they're actually getting weaker as people are unwinding their risk position. So it becomes a complex situation. So for me, I'm leaving the yen alone. Aussie dollar lower highs, lower lows overall here. It still looks weak, on the weaker side of things. You start coming down the time frame zone, the 4 hourlies, and it's got this divergence, this higher low even, that it sort of popped through. It's run into its weekly pivot through the Asian session here, and again there's the high lows, high highs short term. I just don't like the look of this at all. I struggle. I mean, yesterday I was looking for an earlier break of the trend line if it was going to go up to that weekly pivot. It didn't come until, well, it's 2 o'clock bar actually moved on this particular one, but we're seeing, as I said, a lot of later shifts. Sometimes it's the 2, well, only because it actually started at 1 o'clock there, the move, but it was the time we got through the trend line, it was quite late. We're seeing this quite a bit here. It's got the high lows, high highs. Maybe at some point we'll get another shove up there. Commodities are getting hammered at times, and other times they're sort of the bee's knees again. It's not easy to read, so if it ain't easy to read, don't trade it. Canadian dollar, well, yesterday it again rallied, then sold off. US dollar, Canadian dollar. I was looking at this yesterday. It was a much smaller peak at the time. We were only running into its 4 hourly 21, and I was saying, well, if it breaks down this area here, I'm interested. And the same thing applies. If it starts breaking down through this 4 hourly 50, I'm interested in the shorter side of things. We do have, of course, the Bank of Canada Reserve. Bank of Canada is sorry, not Reserve Bank. We've got the Reserve Bank of New Zealand and the Bank of Canada both reporting on Wednesday, so just be careful. Both of them are more of a have a more hawkish tone, and well, that could, and I say could, see the Canadian dollar moving south. Okay, New Zealand dollar, talking to the other one, I'll just pick this up today, and well, chopping along at the moment, and it's sold off here at the moment. It's stalling. If it can break back above the weekly pivot on this 4 hourly pivot, the weekly pivot I've got on here on this 4 hourly chart, may become a bit more bullish. It's just back to its daily pivot at the moment. We could see something start developing as we run through the morning here. If we get a sort of another bar pushing to the upside, a little bit of a swing to the upside there, I'll look and see whether that's worth it for trade. But as I say, there is big risk coming tomorrow. But it could be, and the thing I say could be, it could be for the upside. Of course, if they aren't as hawkish as some of the banks and analysts are thinking, well, we could just see this dumped. So it's always a risk. Right, okay, there's the key pairings. Just to look at a couple of cross pairings that we follow. I like to look at the euro yen, and well, it's euro yen at the moment. Let's come back a little bit. There we go. So lower highs, lower lows is the key thing here. We found some support last week off the S1 pivot there on the monthlies. It's a bit of an ugly mess here. Again, I was looking for the sort of breaks after it pulled back yesterday, but again, it was that sort of 12 o'clock, the afternoon bar, that really started the move. And it says the American markets are coming in on stream here. We're just sort of seeing, obviously there's more attitude towards risk, and we're seeing in the afternoons at the moment, and that may be that we're playing a game seriously of two halves, one where we're seeing risk coming off in the mornings and going back on in the afternoons, but for now, where it sits, yes, again, this is another market that could be pushing up. The euro has seen some favour against the dollar, not necessarily its peers, but against the dollar. But it's not done too bad here either. I'm just sort of looking; it hasn't quite caught its daily pivot. Would much prefer to see it hit the daily pivot, the 50 MA maybe. Find a bit of support around here, then that could be a long for me. But at the moment, not seeing anything I like there. So they're the currencies. Let's have a quick look now through the equity markets. I'm going to just change charts to do this. Let's bring this one in. Sip this in. Now, you like me looking at this Hong Kong, where it's the CSI 300 here. This market it's picking up. I'm just looking from a daily perspective. It's picking up a little bit. I was looking back at maybe on the weekly basis, and I keep looking at this on the weekly basis, thinking, oh, it looks a little bit iffy, but it has picked up. It is looking a little bit better here. A break above this sort of 51-53 area and a close above that may just say, well, okay, it's doing better. But at the moment, it's still got the lower high in there and this sort of current price action, and until we start seeing some higher lows coming through there, I'm sitting on the fence a little bit with that market. FTSE not quite open yet. What time is it? 8. Oh, it is open. He says. Again, game of two halves. Yesterday sold off, then pushed back up and closed up there, and today it's pushing up as I speak here. And well, these markets are sort of, I don't know if they're led by or they're just being drawn up by because of the likes of the S&Ps. But again, the DAX here this morning, okay, it's just running into some prior highs here. We're seeing selling coming in first thing. It's whether or not we can okay, if that selling just sort of comes in and if we can push back up, but certainly a lot stronger than it was looking recently. I sort of saw these sort of closes below the levels here, but generally when you're seeing a market push up like this and you've got the consolidation around the highs, generally the best and the most safest direction is to the upside, and that's what we've seen here so far. Looking at US markets then, and NASDAQ, bit of a retrace again. Well, these are starting to push back up. I'm going to look at the S&Ps. So yesterday, yet again, new all-time highs kicking in there. A little bit of sell-off coming through. Whether it's the European markets affecting the US markets or vice versa on some of this, the thing is, there's a desire for the sort of risk into these equity markets. There isn't anywhere else where people, big investors, are getting their money. I was talking briefly about the Forex market. I was looking at the commitment of traders, where the big money is going. It seems to be heading a bit towards the dollar, which is always an element of risk off. So you've got to be careful. We've seen bonds pushing up recently. We're seeing sort of flows go where you don't necessarily expect them, but the equity markets are still the place where I think a lot of these big investors are looking for returns. So there we are, S&P's pushing up there. Dow Jones, for those that are looking at Dow Jones, I remember not long ago when it was down here, the end was nigh, where it's not, and I find it difficult to see these markets rolling over massively without some excuse, and it needs to be a reasonable excuse, and there isn't one at the moment. And even potential tapering, etc., I think will have short-term effects, because it's only when real interest rates start pushing up, and even at 1 and 2%, they're historically low compared to the sort of mean. Anyway, sorry, I'll get off move. There's the indices. Crypto. Everyone wants to sell something when it's near a top of something. Talking of tops of something, well, let's look at something near the bottom of something. And I'm looking at Bitcoin versus US dollar here, and well, yesterday it had a down day. It didn't manage to pick up where the other markets picked up yesterday, and got a bounce in the afternoon. There was no such bounce here. Let's just come down the time frames here. You just look at, well, little bounce there, but that was late on. Got a funny old, it's a 2100 hour, so it's 8. It would normally be about an 8 o'clock, but it was late. It just sold through the day there. What am I seeing here? Well, there was some sort of potential that was led through the weekend there with the high lows, high highs coming through, but we've just come back into this sort of range, and it's reacted quite strong on a proper trading, I say proper trading day, but after the weekend it's reacted quite strongly. Maybe if risk starts coming through a little bit more into here, we'll catch more of a bounce on Bitcoin, but I'm not expecting great things at the moment. They seem to have lost near-term favour. Even my favourite little old Ethereum is no longer my favourite. No, I'm joking. But it has sold off yesterday, and look at the consolidation. It's barely moving, and again consolidating, barely moving around the low. Maybe it's going to be making a new low at some stage. I'm sorry to tell you that if you're invested in these things, because it's not really what you want to hear, and often we get negative comments coming through because no, you can't say that. But that's the reality of what these markets look like, and the reality of the way patterns, particularly in the summer, where you get this sort of more consolidated phases like the Ripple here. This has a potential, with the court case that sits over it, of flying at some stage, one way or t'other. But at the moment, it's just consolidating, and it just, to me, looks like, well, hasn't got much in the way of legs. Right, there we go. So we've done the equity markets. Let's just finish off then with looking at gold, some commodities. Crikey, we get some value-packed mornings. Please do like this video if you like the different content in it. Okay, gold. Not necessarily if you like what you hear, because unfortunately sometimes you won't be hearing what you want to hear, or what we would all like to hear. Gold consolidation, and well, yesterday again, it sold off at a part of the day, pushed back in. It's putting a little wedge in on the shorter time frames. You come down the shorter time frames, it's ugly as sin, but at the moment, there you go. That was a sell-off. That sort of run into 12 o'clock. It run into 12 o'clock for that sell-off, and then rallied during the afternoon again, as we saw the dollar selling coming through in other currencies, and obviously commodities pushing back up again. And just watch for that game of two halves in these current markets. It just means you need to be aware around midday. Look at what's going on. See if you can start seeing any signs of the sort of turn in the market, if there is going to be a turn in the market. It could be the opposite way, of course. As we look at this at the moment, it looks, well, there's potential for upside. There's horrible sort of trend lines or chimney or whatever you like to call it there, never really sold off very much, so some ugly old patterns flowing through here, choppy as anything. Still looks like, well, maybe got some more potential to the upside. Oil, finally, he says, and finally oil. So yesterday again, it didn't really recover as well as it had. It did pick up in the later session there. Here we go, 12 o'clock. No surprise then. But it never got back to where it had been, so we're just putting in that doji, or little hammer actually, bar. High lows, higher highs, you can just about work it out through the 60 minutes here. I was looking yesterday, as I said, I tend to look to trade the Western Texas after 2 o'clock when the cash market opens up. I just think it's got more, well, it has more volumes coming through, but it just didn't pick up until quite late. It was 3 o'clock when it actually broke its trend line, and it's barely going there. Looking at oil as a whole, it is struggling to get back to its highs there, and if it was to break these lows here at 70, 68, well then it'll put a lower high in, and it'll start maybe looking at a bit more of a bearish trend. But as the world economy starts picking up, countries start turning back on, well, of course there's going to be demand for oil, but don't forget there's huge production for capacity that's not being used. We're still on this sort of choked capacity. There's a lot of countries that want to pump it out, so don't get too worried. But at the moment, could we see $100 oil? Of course we could, but let's just be led what the price is showing us. There you go. That's it for me for today. I wish you a great trading day. If you can pick from this and get something from it, great stuff. But it's not the easiest morning, as I said. I'm looking at this at the moment. Like the euro is one of my favorite trading tools, and at the moment it's almost erring towards a sort of downside, but the overall bigger picture here still looks like it could pick up and push up. I say bigger picture, medium term picture, because as soon as you come to the dailies, you think, well, or weeklies, it still looks a bit iffy. So that's what we have to contend with in this market. Maybe even worth waiting for the afternoon to catch something that's maybe clearer. Have a great day. I'll catch you in the morning. Bye for now.